Alright, Honda-84 coming at you here with hopefully the first of many of my RC videos. Hopefully basically how-tos and how to maintain. Today we're going to be talking about the steering servo, what it does, how to replace it, or how to adjust it more specifically, and how to replace it. I'll do that in another video. But for now, we're going to be focusing on how to adjust your steering. Now, in my case, I have taken apart my front, my center, and my rear differential and re-oiled it. Why? Well, because quite frankly, from the factory, the nitro cars and don't come from the factory pre-oiled as much. They don't really put that much in there, so that can cause over time a lot of wear and tear and a lot of problems as well. So and also I had to do that while in the process of doing that differential on my way home. I lost my front tire, so I had to get some new tires here. Now it's important that the purpose of keeping your steering, in alignment, are other things coupled with that, but the steering is the most important part of the car. It is hands down number one, numero uno. And that being in mind, there are a lot of things that are included, and specifically more on your radio or in anything. Basic radios offer only steering trim and servo reversing, which sometimes obviously that means that if you want to, say, instead of pulling down on your trigger to go forward, you want that to use as your brake and push up for gas. But many RTR radios also include the dual rate steering, which is also known as the steering rate. Dual rate often refers to planes and elevation and all that kind of stuff more than it does for actual cars. But in my case, I lost my tire, so I had to buy a new Duratec Posse C3s, and I was using the off the stock OFNA ones, which the rear one here got some wear and tear here from heavy braking, and that can be caused by using your RC car on the pavement when you should be using pavement tires for that and not dirt tires, which come with this heavy tread right here. Now I decided to use these Posses on the front of my car rather than the rear because they come more rounded at the edges, which will offer in the end a very more rounded and very more response for the steering. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that your tires are obviously on your car, and in my case I'll be using a 17 millimeter car, because you have to have your tires on, not because you just have to. I mean, absolute or must to do, but if you're more of a visual person like I am, then you want to make sure that you visually look at your car and you see that these tires here, your hubs, aren't at any sort of angle. And I mean, that's up to you really if you want to use the angle. There are some uses to having the caster like that, and that's such advantages of racing, and that's around corners and suspension and keeping that flat part of the tire on the ground and then getting more traction as you go. And if you're wondering, actually, this is the IPRSS cage, and this is a custom cage. I customized this myself. What came on it before was this frail crap aluminum. Just this stuff is this garbage, and it broke. The side pieces here broke on the very first jump, so I decided to reinforce it myself. Now, if you're also wondering why I'm spinning my car around, isn't just for this video. It's actually good to keep your car, when you're not using it, first thing you need to do, make sure your battery's off. Okay, you don't want your servos, all your electronics, your battery dying when you take your car out, you find out that it's toast and you need to charge it. Two is you need to make sure that you pull your gas line, your fuel line that goes from your tank to your carburetor off right here. And I'll try to get a zoom in shot of that, but this wire here needs to be plugged in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my tire, and then I'll start with the steering. Tires are on, and they're all bolted down. We should notice that our iron arm is is unhooked here. Now, if you want to make sure that this tire arm here needs to be disconnected, and there is a screw that goes down in there, which you can use any. I think you can use. I like to use Torx, but the T8 to Torx T8 is your best bet to get into your hand tools. I mean, if you have a power drill, that works too, but you need to put it on low setting. What you want to do is actually make sure that your steering, or that first things first, is you need to turn your car on. Or not, sorry, my bad. You need to actually turn your radio on. And what I'm using is a Haboa H2 HT, and it's a 3-channel, and it's the FHSS actually comes with dual rate on it. And like I was mentioning before, is that everything revolves around your steering and a good radio. And the RTR radios are halfway decent, and I got the luck of having the steering rate on here plus trim. But the transmitter is a huge part of your car, and so I mean, when you make sure that when you turn your radio on, you turn it on first. You don't turn anything else on. This is basic RC 101 stuff, and I know, if you heard this before, I apologize, but most of you don't know this. So when you turn your radio on first, your radio on first, then you turn your switch on for your car. Now, if you notice, when you do, you should see this spin or turn. And if you don't, that means it's pretty dead. Also, make sure that your trim on here, mine of course has left and right trims, make sure that they're set dead center. I'm talking right in the center of the trim, so that way it neutralizes everything. So when you turn the car on, that it should spin, but if it doesn't, that means I've did a good job of turning everything. Is now we want to hook up the horn. Now the problem with the horn is it needs to be, when you're always setting up your linkages, you want to make sure that you set them up so that the levers here and the rod, the lever and the rod, are at a 90 degrees to each other at neutral. And if they're off, this can create a mechanical exponent effect, which can make either your left or your right turn more. And so you want to turn left more than you turn right, then that can screw everything up, obviously. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop this linkage on, and then make sure that when you pop it on, that you make sure you put it on nice and straight. And now that I have my tires on here nice and straight, I could take that out of here, and I could put this down on the ground. It gives you a better idea of what the car looks like when you put the steering together. You make sure the tires are relatively straight. So that means no left or the right. You need to make sure that when you're looking at your car, you're looking at it straight on. Just kind of look straight at it, and then you'll worry about caster and camber later. But I mean, for the most part, if you do know about that kind of stuff, then you need to make sure that that's all adjusted prior to doing this. That way, when you put this steering horn on, that you don't have to do this all over again. So my solution is simple. I need to adjust my linkages here, but I'd like to use is a tiny thing here, and it's my tuning one, but I like to adjust it by putting it through this tiny hole here in the middle, and then you can just spin it in a circle. And generally you think that righty-tighty, lefty-loosey ratio is the same with everything, but it's not. When you're tuning, say, the camber on the left side, it's actually reversed on the right side, and every car is different, of course. But for the most part, you want to make sure that your wheels are dead straight when you put this on, that you ain't now traveling more or less than the left and the right. So it's important that you put that gear right on. But just for the sake of video purposes and learning purposes, it's easier to show by example than it is just to tell you about it. So why I'm doing this, because like I said before, you need to make sure that this is at a 45. It's important because your car will turn one way or the other, more or less, and it'll favor that side to which you put it too much on that side of. All right, now that I've tightened up the knuckle here on the steering horn, what you want to do, and especially like I said before, I'm going to reiterate, on my controller, I have my steering trim, which is set at from 0 to 100. I have mine set at 50, both sides. Now, if they're set at 0, the tires will not churn. If it's set too much, then they'll over churn. So you want to make sure that's centered. Now that I adjusted my knuckle here, what happens is, once I adjust the knuckle here, and put the steering arm on, before you put it on, like I said before, you want to make sure that you turn your car on, or your radio on first, then your car, and then just on my controller, what I need to do is mine has the trim right here on the top. Now, if you look at the little blinking light here, what that will do is it'll turn green, then red, solid red. Now, what my controller means is if I go past solid red and keep going, that's green again. That means that the tires are not set at neutral. Now, when I need to go back, one green, and then green, red, solid red. That means my tires are in the neutral position. Now, if you look at my tires, like I said before, you want to make sure you're looking at it from the straight position, and make sure that your steering horn everything's perfect. And like I said, now most of the stuff that you're going to be doing here, once you get your steering horn on, and once you tighten up the screw, and put the screw in here and tighten it all down, you should be good to go. Now, the problem is that most of this stuff now is more than just looks. It is actually on the road, pavement mainly, but if you want to try dirt, you can do dirt too, but dirt has a lot of bumps and holes, things that can throw your adjustments off. But all that's fine-tuning stuff. I recommend anybody who likes to jump their car or be rough with it and thinks their car is invincible, I recommend Savic servos. Okay, they are not the best, but they are the affordably best. And so this is Honda Dash 84 coming at you with my next video. Please subscribe